Hey, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Please take a second to hit thumbs up and everything. Our revolution has died with a whimper. Just about the way that I think people who predicted our revolution would die, it is dying. Wildly pathetic. But you can't say a lot of people didn't see this coming. You can't say people weren't predicting this from the beginning. But here is from the AP, which has just come out with an article now. Pro Sanders Group rebranding into pragmatic progressives. They are letting go of their revolutionary ideas and becoming pragmatic progressives. Doesn't that sound like something like some phrase that like a big pharma ad would use as it's scrolling underneath? May result in anal explosion, may result in bleeding from the eyes. Talk to your doctor if your arms fall off. And then across the screen it says pragmatic progressive. Isn't that what that sounds like? Rebranding as pragmatic progressives. Now, I'm going to go to that article and dig into a little more in a second, but let me just give you a little bit of the background of our revolution. So Bernie Sanders runs for president, gets very close to, it was stolen from him. He won the primary without a doubt. In about 1,000 different ways, he won the primary in 2016. But they rigged it. They stole it from him. But during that time, he built up one of the largest machines for individual donors, individual messaging, getting out the vote, getting people active, getting out a message. All of that takes a lot of work normally. It's not normally done over 6 months or whatever. It normally is years and years of trying to build up something like that. But the energy behind him in 2016 was so massive that it created this incredible machine for activism, for creating change, for getting a message out, and for donations. Because whether you like it or not, creating change often does come down to money in many ways, which is our pathetic, fucked up system. It doesn't matter if you want to abolish capitalism. You could want to abolish the market economy. You could want to abolish money. Getting people to find out about those kind of ideas often takes a lot of money. So anyway, that was a side note. But this massive machine gets built up, and then he decides, he doesn't become president, and he announces that it's, he's going to create this organization, Our Revolution. And at first, the people, and it was made of the higher ups in Our Revolution was made of people who had run and helped run the Bernie's campaign. It was a lot of those same people. And at first, they declare, and you got to realize that Bernie did have some of these kind of standard garbage progressives around him. He was never a fucking Che Guevara revolutionary in a lot of ways, in almost all the ways. But he did have many of these people around him. And so those people start saying to him, not only do they say you have to endorse Hillary Clinton, and he keeps putting it off, but they keep pressuring him to endorse Hillary Clinton. But when our revolution begins, they say, well, now that we're done with that whole presidential campaign thing, we should start taking big money donors. We should start allowing billionaires who want to support our revolution to do that. And there was a substantial group of people within Bernie Sanders, group, within the group that was making Our Revolution, who said, what are you, fucking out of your mind? The whole point of everything you've been talking about was that we aren't billionaire adjacent. We aren't funded by billionaires. We aren't taking billionaire cash. They aren't telling us what to do. That's kind of the whole point. And there was a big debate. And Nick Brana, who went on, initially it was called Draft Bernie, but went on to found Movement for a People's Party. Nick Brana led and was part of the leaders that said, well, we're walking out of our revolution. If you're talking about taking billionaire money, then we're done with our revolution. So he leads a walkout. And initially that walkout becomes Draft Bernie, which was Draft Bernie to create a third party, not Draft Bernie to run as a Democrat again. It was Draft Bernie to start a People's Party, a separate party. And then it became, once it was clear Bernie Sanders was not going to leave the Democratic Party and was going to, in fact, run again for president as a Democrat, they stopped with the Draft Bernie and moved on to Movement for a People's Party. Another side note. The larger point is that our revolution, I'm trying to make it clear that from those earliest days, our revolution already had people swarming around inside of it going, let's take billionaire money. Let's do exactly the opposite. That is everything Bernie Sanders supposedly stood for. Let's do that. And many of the people who were not saying that walked out. So you're left with just the kind of shit people, the liberals who maybe were slightly left of Hillary Clinton, and that's why they decided to work with Bernie Sanders. But whatever it is, they are not that different from a Hillary Clinton neoliberal bullshit person. So you got all those people filling a lot of the higher ups of our revolution. You probably still had some borderline revolutionary people in there, but not enough to really control things. And so our revolution just kind of starts fading into the woodwork. I mean, it doesn't create change. It doesn't fight to push for things that Congress is not allowing. It does not fight to broaden the Overton window, to smash the Overton window. What is the allowable talking point? It's not. I mean, when was the last Our Revolution email you got for like fucking occupying Congress and not leaving until they realize they're not going to be able to do shit until they give everyone health care? Like, they were not pushing a revolutionary platform. And it was just, you know, I think on paper they still said they stood for health care for all and those kind of things, but they weren't doing much. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of fucking shutting down of cities being done by our revolution. So it becomes kind of weaker and weaker. And then you have this article today, which I assume our revolution must have just recently announced. They thought they'd just make it clear. This is kind of like that moment when Google, remember initially Google was founded and their motto was "Don't be evil," and for a while they just kind of stopped talking about that. They were like, let's just not mention that it's "Don't be evil." And then eventually, several years ago, they actually made a decision. Like, it actually came down from on high. We are getting rid of the slogan "Don't be evil," meaning, I guess, be evil. Meaning we are kind of evil, so let's be evil. So they actually had to make that choice, but they'd kind of stopped talking about that slogan for a while. This is kind of similar. This is like our revolution had already kind of faded into borderline nothing compared to what it was supposed to be. And now is the moment when they say, you know what? Let's just take away the whole "don't be evil" thing. Let's actually announce that we are just a pragmatic, progressive group. So here's some of this article from the AP. And by the way, this has some lovely AP propaganda in it as well, which you should expect because AP is a neoliberal rag as well. So, stinging from the disappointment of Bernie Sanders' loss in 2016, our supporters pumped millions into the powerful advocacy group Our Revolution. I already told you that part. But after another defeat in 2020, the 79-year-old Vermont senator is unlikely to run for president a third time, and the organization centered on his fiery brand of politics is undergoing a rebranding. And rebranding is a nice euphemism for we're ditching the things we stood for and we're replacing them with garbage neoliberal shit. But, you know, nowadays you just call that rebranding. Because it sounds better, right? Oh, we're just changing the color of the drapes. That's all we're doing. We're not different people now. We're just changing the canopy on the front of the store. Rather than insisting on Medicare for all, Sanders' trademark universal government-funded healthcare plan, or the climate change fighting Green New Deal. By the way, both of those are already compromises. Medicare for all is already a compromise. Green New Deal, the one that was put forward in Congress, is already a compromise. In fact, the Green New Deal that was put forward in Congress was a big compromise compared to the original Green New Deal put forward by the Green Party, which did things like take militarism into account. So the Green New Deal was already a compromise. They're acting like these are radical plans. No, these were already compromises. To continue from the article, our revolution is focusing on more modest alternatives endorsed by President Joe Biden. You motherfuckers, if you are doing the things endorsed by the neoliberal Joe Biden, then you are not whatever Bernie Sanders thought he stood for in 2015 and 2016. Because he didn't stand for Joe Biden at that time. He was not pushing the same shit as Joe Biden in those campaigns. So if you are now endorsing things that Joe Biden likes, then you're officially the polar opposite of what you claim to be when you were founded. I mean, fucking incredible. Back to the article. So they're pushing for more modest alternatives endorsed by President Joe Biden. Those include expanding eligibility for existing Medicare program. Yeah, let's not give everybody health care. Let's just give 60-year-olds Medicare for all instead of 65 or whatever the age is. We'll just change the age slightly. We'll just give you a little bit of something for older people. Well, that's not fucking healthcare for all, is it? So you're not doing it. Just admit we don't stand for what we claim to stand for initially. Those include expanding eligibility for existing Medicare program and curtailing federal subsidies for fossil fuel companies. Yes, we're going to curtail the subsidies. No, fucking get rid of fossil fuel companies entirely. Step one is to get rid of all the subsidies of fossil fuel companies. Step two is to make it fucking illegal to be a fossil fuel company because they're killing us. They're destroying our planet. They're destroying our lives. They're destroying our futures. They're destroying the possibility of your grandkids to have to breathe a fresh breath of air one day. They're fucking ban fossil fuel companies. But instead, what is our revolution now saying? Let's curtail the subsidies. I mean, is there a more fucking ridiculous euphemism, a ridiculous fucking equivocation, backing down with the spine of an arthritic jellyfish? You sad sacks of shit. We don't stand for anything we used to stand for. We're going to curtail the subsidies of fossil fuels. I mean, it's so goddamn laughable. It's like, here's the other thing. Just from a strategic standpoint or whatever, you already have groups saying, let's curtail the subsidies. You already have people like Joe Biden, maybe sometimes in speeches saying, let's curtail the subsidies, even though the AP itself reported that Joe Biden is on pace to actually allow more drilling than Donald Trump has allowed. Okay, more drilling in public lands and native territories and things like that. He's on pace to allow more oil extraction than Donald Trump did. That's according to the AP. That's not according to fucking Radical McRattleson. That's not according to radindymedia.com, which is where you should really get your news. That's according to AP. And so why, there's no point for a group like Our Revolution unless it's going to stand for revolutionary ideas. There is no point for it because that other thing, standing for curtailing the subsidies, that already exists. You already have fucking loads of Democrats saying, I think we should curtail the subsidies. Because, if we take $5 away from ExxonMobil, then that's really going to stop their, it'll decrease their oil production by $5, which will be a really nice thing. You already have sacks of shit saying to curtail the subsidies. You don't need Our Revolution to do it. The point of any group like Our Revolution is to say the things that are not said by every piece of shit, middle of the road, centrist, piece of fucking steaming horse shit Democrat. That's the whole point of them. I mean, why? Who's signing up for our revolution? Like, I got to get with a group that says maybe we could one day curtail the subsidies. To continue from AP, the group says it wants to make sure Biden keeps his promises on those and other top issues. Yeah, he hasn't. He hasn't. So whatever you think you're doing, you're not doing. He hasn't kept his promises. And besides, if you wanted to keep his promises, then you need to push him harder than asking him to curtail some subsidies. If you want him to keep his promises, his bullshit promises that he knew he didn't mean even as he said them, if you wanted him to keep those, then you got to push him harder than that. Then you got to do the opposite of what this shit is. The shift reflects a progressive movement that is at a crossroads. So remember I said there's some AP propaganda in here? This is AP propaganda. This is, let's make everyone think that being a real progressive, actually being to the left, is having a lot of difficulty right now. You know, it's just a really tough time for, when in fact, it's because you're going up against the most powerful forces on the planet. You're going up against corporate America. You're going up against the corporate state. You're going up against the oligarchy, the ruling elite. You're going up against the most powerful forces that have ever existed on this planet. If you're a real leftist, if you're actually left wing. And so is it a big surprise that you run into some roadblocks? Is it a big surprise that corporations like YouTube are suppressing everything we have to say? No. So it's not at a crossroads. It's that you, meaning shit neoliberal rags like the AP, which, by the way, if you want to know how shit neoliberal rag the AP is, it announced Hillary Clinton as the presidential nominee before California, before the final race. Remember when Bernie Sanders was nearly winning? The AP went ahead and announced her as the winner of the nomination because they wanted to suppress voting in California in order to help make sure she actually won, which she didn't actually win. You know, it was stolen from her in a million ways. I mean, stolen from him in a million ways. But anyway, that's what the AP does. The AP is firmly in bed with the likes of the Clinton machine. The shift reflects a progressive movement that is at a crossroads. Biden won the Democratic nomination last year. No, he didn't. He stole it like Hillary Clinton did. Biden won the Democratic nomination last year. And even if he had, it's only with money. It's with billions of dollars. That's how you do it. But also he and Obama got all the fucking people running for president to drop out on the same night and all endorse Joe Biden. So that's not really winning it, is it? That's called just corruption. Biden won the Democratic nomination last year by offering more centrist alternatives to much of Sanders' agenda. Again, not true. Since then, progressive candidates have faced a series of electoral disappointments. First of all, they've had some huge wins, like Cory Bush and others. But beyond that, these losses are because you're going against the machine. You're going against the most powerful force in this country. And so those losses don't mean you did something wrong and you should become a centrist. Unless you want to win by continuing to support the death of this planet, by continuing to support endless war and endless oil production, unless you want to win that way, quote unquote, win that way, that's winning by losing. Yeah, you may be like, we won, right? If I cheered on Joe Biden, I could say I won. Wow. How great would that be as we continue to kill ourselves and the planet? Since then, progressive candidates have faced a series of electoral disappointments and are contending with anxiety from moderate Democrats worried that the party's the leftward shift. Hold on. How are you saying that they're losers and also there's a leftward shift of the party? No, there's not. There's a leftward shift of everybody else in America, but not of the fucking party, which is a corporate shit show. Leftward shift could cost them control of Congress. What does control of Congress matter if you don't do shit with it? If you just sit there like Joe Biden does and say that he can't give people a $15 minimum wage because the parliamentarian said he couldn't do it. The parliamentarian, a position no one knew existed until last week. And now Joe Biden said, "Oh, my hands are tied. I can't give you health care." In fact, I did multiple segments on how Joe Biden could actually give almost everybody health care with the flick of a pen. He could give $15 minimum wage. He could erase most student loans. He could allow all immigrants to stay in the country. He could do all those things mostly with a flick of a pen. And even if they ultimately got overturned in court, that could take a year. That could take a year or more. So meaning during all that time, you'd have people with health care. During all that time, you'd have people living their lives much better than they are now. He could do all of that. And Donald Trump proved how powerful the presidency is if you want it to be, right? You get to change. You get to do most of your shit without Congress. And Congress can run around steaming mad. Doesn't matter. But most of them won't run around steaming mad because they don't actually care that they have no power. They're just there to collect a shit ton of money. So this article continues. For the first time since 2016, Sanders is no longer the undisputed leader of the left. Coming out of Bernie's 2016 campaign, in some ways, the organization was probably more of a bridge organization between the two electoral cycles. Oh, see, they're already writing their own epitaph. That's our revolution's executive director said that. Basic, because what does that mean? A bridge between the two electoral cycles, 2016 and 2020. So you're basically saying we're dead as of 2020, which was last year. This is the exact. I mean, this is how they capture an organization that could have actually had an impact. They've got an executive director who's like, yeah, maybe we should have just closed up shop in 2020. I think we kind of did, right? I mean, in many ways, we were just a bridge between 2016 and 2020. Oh, God. I mean, how much more proof do you need that these people don't actually want to create any change? The fact that this guy cares more about the electoral cycle than about actually doing anything. That would be his answer if someone came to him and said, hey, you could actually create a really large-scale impressive change right now with our revolution if you really wanted to, considering the number of people you have on that email list, the number of people that care about it, the number of people that donate when you ask them to. And he would say, well, yeah, maybe, but really we're just here for the electoral fight. So we don't actually want to give everybody health care. We don't actually want to create a Green New Deal. We don't actually want to create change. We were just here to be a bridge between 2016 and 2020. I mean, God damn it. Could our revolution be any more captured? This is hilarious. And the executive director continued. What we're trying to build is something that is longer term, part of an overall ecosystem of the progressive movement. He's basically saying, like, we're ready to fade into the woodwork of bullshit, meaningless centrism. He's like, honestly, they should start printing out T-shirts. Hey, we've got the new Our Revolution merch. It just says, we're ready to fade into the woodwork of bullshit centrism. We're changing the name to Our Incremental Change. We're not Our Revolution, okay, it sounded kind of snappy, kind of had a little edge to it, but we've changed we're changing our name to Our Incremental Change. We think that's a little more hardcore, or we're thinking of changing it to Our Pathetic Centrism, because people can really get behind that. Like, hey, what do we stand for? Not a lot, and definitely not soon. When do we want it? Who knows? What do we stand for? What do we want? Incremental change. When do we want it? Slowly over a long period of time and maybe never. Yay! Let's go get them. Ugh, what a piece of shit. Sanders, who now heads the powerful Senate Budget Committee and does very little with it, can't legally work with outside political groups like Our Revolution. Despite the group's change in emphasis, it remains deeply engaged in progressive politics. Yes, we are deeply engaged in not doing shit. We are deeply engaged in not making a difference. So then they talk a little about Nina Turner, who I actually think Nina Turner's pretty cool. I haven't talked much about her basically because she's running as a Democrat, and I don't think you can create any change as a Democrat because you can't be revolutionary in an anti-revolutionary party. I mean, there's nothing the Democrats do other than try and make sure that the status quo remains the status quo. They just support corporate pillaging the world. I mean, that's who they are. They're basically, the ones in Congress are basically as wealthy as the Republicans. They're just trying to make sure the rich remain rich. So in terms of a party, I don't think you can do much within it. However, I will say something that has gotten me more excited about Nina Turner possibly winning is the Clintons have shown up for her opponent. So the moment the Clintons and the Clinton machine has fucking jumped in to try and stop Nina Turner, now I kind of like it. Now I'm kind of for it. Oh, man, just because anything to fuck over the Clintons, anything to fuck over those neoliberal stooges. So Nina Turner running in Ohio is pretty cool. And I don't know that the whole we're going to change the system from within, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. I'd fucking love to see the Clintons lose because fuck them. The director of Our Revolution dismisses perceptions that moderate Democrats are on the rise. Yeah, because the fucking system has made sure that moderate Democrats crush anybody who's even slightly not a moderate Democrat. The amount of money they can put into stopping these people. And you know, I mean, what they're doing in Buffalo, New York, we're covering this on Redacted tonight this week. In Buffalo, New York, there's a socialist who may win the mayor of Buffalo. So right now, the legislature is not the state, but the city legislature is in discussions to get rid of the office of mayor. In order to make sure there can't be a socialist mayor of Buffalo, Chicago, a woman of color, by the way, which supposedly the Democrats support that type of thing, but they don't give a fuck about a woman of color now. When she's an outright socialist, they're like, yeah, fuck women of color. All of a sudden, they don't stand for that. Huh? Interesting. Same with Nina Turner. We're all for women of color doing impressive things. Well, not Nina Turner. Well, not India Walton. No, we're not fighting for that. God, not those kinds of women of color. Jesus, man. When I said women of color, I meant ones that support endless war and corporate pillaging, not ones that stand up for other things. Jesus. But yeah, so they're so desperate to stop her that they're talking about getting rid of the actual position of mayor in Buffalo, New York. Anyway, the article goes on, but I feel like this is the death rattle of our revolution. This is the final breath coming out of a faded, pathetic Our Revolution, which was captured from day one when Nick Brana and others led a walkout because Our Revolution was talking about taking billionaire cash. That was their beginning. That was their earliest days, ready to sell themselves to billionaires. Day one, let's sell ourselves to billionaires. And you knew that could go nowhere good. That could not actually create any change. And here they are now saying, we'd like to rebrand as centrist shitheads. We're doing a little rebranding, meaning soul selling. But yeah, this is the end of Our Revolution. I mean, how pathetic. Leaving with a whimper. Their death rattle is a whimper because they didn't actually create any change, and it seems clear now that they never really intended to. And the people that did actually intend to walked out pretty early. So, guys, I want you to, if you have a minute, if you haven't heard about it, check out radindymedia.com because, you know, there's a lot of little apps and things. You can check your news every morning. You guys probably do that. You probably check Twitter, or you check an app for news, or maybe you do something horrible like go to CNN to check the news. Whatever it is, at minimum, stop doing that. But you should add a new one to your list and get the real news, get real independent radical media. And it's radindiemedia.com. It's not a money-making venture. If you go there, there's no ads, there's no sponsors. It was created by me and Eleanor Goldfield, and it is just grabbing the awesome news, the independent news from around the web, and showing it to you every day. And I think it's something you should check every day. I mean, you don't have a lot to lose. If you check it and that morning or that day, they don't happen to be the stories you care about, check it the next day. See if they are that day. And I bet you give it 2 days, I bet you'll find a story. You'll be like, holy fuck, I didn't know about that. And why didn't I know about that? Because our garbage mainstream media won't tell you about that. So check out radindiemedia.com. That's INDIE.com. I'll type it in the comment section. And also all the donations on this super chat go to people in need, people who are struggling, a solidarity fund amongst you guys and us. All the money on this super chat, all the money on the Rockfin tips, all the money on Venmo at Lee Camp. Even if you're not watching this live, you can Venmo at Lee Camp. All that gets donated to people who are struggling, people who need help, people who really are having a rough time. And if that's you, then email commoncensored@protonmail.com. You can get in line, as we say. I mean, we're able to get something to almost everyone, but for, it's like $80 or something, $80, maybe $100, depending on how many people donate, how many people need help. So if that's you, then email commoncensored@protonmail.com. And what else? New Redacted tonight, VIP coming out tomorrow. That's an interview with Dennis Kucinich, former congressman, former presidential candidate, Dennis Kucinich. Also, New Redacted tonight on Friday. And check out radindiemedia.com. Sign up for the email while you're over there, Rad Indie Media. And keep fighting.